and welcome everybody to the latest episode of the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, where we share the past lives and side gigs of the really cool people that deliver your insights every day. So today I'm super excited to welcome Rene Huey-Lipton to the call today. Hi, Rene.
Hi.
Hey. So I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing excellent. Even with all the forest fires and the smoke, we're dealing with it up here in the Pacific Northwest. So it's all good.
There's also this pandemic thing that's going on. You might have heard.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, check out the news. You might find something on it. But anyway, so let me blow a little sunshine up your butt, if I might.
Nice.
So Rene has had a very successful career as an agency planner, a strategist, an insight expert with some of the very best creative agencies and insights consultancies out there. But that's not all that Rene's about. She's not shy at all when it comes to telling it like it is and trying to make the world a little bit of a better place. So Rene is, something you might not know about her is that she's currently authoring a book. She's the founder of a really cool organization called the Dame Collective that's doing great things, and I'll let you tell her all about it. So with that, we start with Rene. All right, so Rene, you, if I recall correctly, you started your career on the agency side, the ad agency side, is that right?
Yeah, I did, with Livingston and Company, which doesn't quite exist anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, so tell us about that and kind of your journey to where you are now and how Insights has played into that journey.
Yeah, it's, I usually sort of tell this part of the story sort of, with jokes and funny stuff, but there was a lot of time to think when with COVID and everything. And the reality is that, I grew up in an alcoholic household. And when you do that, you're sort of hyper aware of everything that's around you, right? A facial tics, body language, a different tone. You're just so aware. And I think for me, that made me want to find out and to understand the why of things. Why is this happening? What's going on? And that sort of paired with the fact that I sort of fell into advertising as a secretary to Pat Duty at Livingston and Company. And then left with Pat and Tracy to form Wong Duty, was, really where I found my love of putting the why of things together with creativity, right? Mm-hmm. And then telling these stories. And, when you join a startup, you sort of do everything.
Right. Been there, done that.
Right, and I loved working with Pat and Tracy, but I wasn't, I was doing, print production and, which was ridiculous. I had no idea what I was doing, but you just do it, right? That whole fake it till you make it thing. Yeah, that's bullshit. Fake it till you fuck up something really bad.
There you go.
So then I said, okay, I really want to do this planning thing. How do I do this? So then I joined Darcy Detroit, because you're working on cars, you get a lot of international experience. They spent a ton on research, so you get to know all that. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, wow, this isn't as creative as I wanted it to be. So I joined FCB in San Francisco for about a year because they had AT&T, and that's what I was working on, and they lost AT&T. And when you lose something that big, yeah. So I went, exactly, catastrophe. So then I went to GSD&M in Austin and spent 12 years there. And both was a sort of strategist, but also ran the department for a while. You start to understand, really sort of the business of insights, or the business of strategy, and that you really have to take off your unicorn glowy blinders and say, okay, as Pat Duty always said, it's more ditch digging than brain surgery. advertising. And it's so true. It's so true. But I got to learn all that the GSD&M culture then was, I don't think they ever said no. If I said, well, what if we check out this Second Life thing and build an agency on there? Or what if we, what's going on with this? And they never said no. And it was a really amazing way to sort of figure out what I love to do, which is this insights thing, right?
Right.
It's always fun to sort of be running all over and trying all these new things. And it's, to be honest, it's very ego boosting, right? Oh, Roy wants me to do this, or so-and-so wants me to do that. It's like, oh, look at me. Which is all false bullshit, because if an organization has someone like me that is excited about these things, of course they're going to ask you, right?
Yeah.
Because you're too stupid to say no and say, wait a minute, I have 2 kids, I have a job, I don't have time to do this other stuff. And that's why from there I went to Brain Juicer, which is now System 1, right? Because they really started with that idea of, market research is broken, which I absolutely believed at the time.
Sure.
And still do for a lot of reasons. And then Sparks and Honey, because culture has been something that I've applied to my work all along, but no one had codified it. No one had sort of said, okay, this is how we make culture relevant to the clients. And now I'm at Maru, and I get to sort of bring everything that I've ever learned, to this job, which I love, which is great. So, that's my career initial. And along the way, there were really horrible times and really fantastic times, right? It was the best of times. It was the worst of times, all of that. And I think anybody in a career says that, but I think it's very real in advertising, because of the emotions, right? Because of all of that goes with it. So
the big wins, the big losses, the big layoffs, the changes in the market, all that good stuff. So there's a lot there. But I know also outside of your professional career, you've had a real passion for women's issues. And I know you've been actively involved with the 3% conference and the Dame Collective and the book that's coming out. Tell us all about that, because
it was all sort of percolating at the same time, right? But an agency here in Seattle hired us, moved us out here, and then before I was even out of corporate housing, they laid a bunch of us off. And I was pissed.
Yeah.
Who does that? And who doesn't do it face to face? But that's a whole other story. But when I sat down to sort of write about it, the reality is I wasn't just angry. I was scared to death, right? I was 52. Who's going to hire, right, a chubby 52-year-old, mouthy broad, to do this? And that's the emotion talking, because logically I know, a lot of people would hire me, but at that moment it is, and then you sort of get into the job hunt, and you can't understand why. It's like, wow, why aren't the things I've applied to on LinkedIn, which is a racket right up there, quite frankly, with home inspections during the buying process. But it's like, why is this happening? So you do some research and you find that, women, only get their resumes looked at, every tiny once in a while, like 13% less on LinkedIn than men do. And globally, a study out of Spain found, with all things being equal, women's resumes are 30% less likely to get looked at. And I'm like, this is bullshit, right? Because older women especially, don't even talk to me about like raising family gaps. Yeah, it's not as if we turn our brain off when we take time off, right? we're learning, we're doing, I think, and, you can look at any study, the reality of what we bring to the party is so much more, obviously, than people get us credit for. And so the Dame Collective came out of all of that. And I said, I want to create a site where women over 40 from any industry, from any country, can put their resume, can put their work up on, and have, and then we can send the companies that need to hire these women to them. And it's just all women, right? And they can find sort of the best people, whether it's full-time or project, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. And it doesn't cost anything, because I didn't want to put another barrier in front of us, right? So yeah, and so the Dame Collective is, it has attitude, right?
Right.
It definitely does. And I got some advice at the beginning. Oh, well, maybe you should test this, and I'm like, no, I don't want to go through 2 years of testing. That's ridiculous. We got it done in like 6 weeks. And I said, and I want this attitude, right? Because, if any, every woman I've met my age has attitude. So why hide it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very rock and roll, if you ask me. So
yeah, thanks.
So super cool. So tell us about your book as well.
Yeah. Stigma. It's called Stigmata: The Bloody Reality of Being a Woman at Work. And it came from a talk I gave at the 3% conference about how women bleed, breed, and feed, and how it affects ourselves at work, right? Because we are conditioned by society, by culture, to hide ourselves, to make ourselves smaller, if our body is doing something that isn't deemed sort of socially acceptable, like bleeding, or our nipples spurting milk, which yes, I've had happen. Menopause, sitting in a meeting just sweating like a pig. We're not supposed to sort of let that show. We're not supposed to, disrupt the the meeting or the moment with any of that stuff. And that's bullshit, right? And we as an industry, need to be more realistic about it, right? I can't tell you how many times I've seen ads about periods, with a beautiful set of legs with like glitter running down it. I'm sorry. There is no correlation between being on your period and sort of a glitter river of blood flowing down your thigh. It's, and why would we teach young girls that, right?
Yeah.
Why do we teach them to sort of, how many times we've seen a woman sort of in a commercial or in real life, sort of scooting along the wall with her back to it, right? Sort of ashamed and embarrassed, but yet laughing. I'm like, no, it's like, hey, this is a fan. I carry it because I sweat like a pig. I have, really menopause right now. Or, get up and, and so the book really came out of that, because after the talk, I had young girls coming up to me out of the audience and saying, thank you. This is how we are. We want to see more of this. And then I had older women my age coming up and saying, I hid my entire breast cancer experience from work because it's cancer and people freak out, and it's hard enough being a woman at work, but no one wants to talk about breast cancer or cervical cancer or whatever. And I just thought, God, the energy we spend as women hiding things like that.
Right.
And there's studies out there. It takes away our creativity, right? Women who are trying to hide something physically at their body and the emotions that come with it are like 69% less likely to sort of be as creative as they could be in the workplace during those moments. And I'm just done with it. I'm just done with having to hide all that. And for those of us who fit into, buckets of other, like the small bucket of me, I'm a bigger woman, but also Black women or Latino women or all these, Latinas, they have a lot more to deal with as well.
Right.
And it's just exhausting
Yeah.
to sort of deal with all that. Yeah.
No, it's a great topic, and I think it's very timely. And I'm kind of curious as well, what other lessons you might draw from, let's say, your professional career that you're applying
Yeah.
to your writing, or maybe even vice versa, that you could share.
It's funny. My first talk at the 3% was supposed to be I don't know how you pronounce it, a Pachuca, whatever it's called, right?
Yeah.
7 seconds per slide or something.
Yeah.
I was
Go ahead.
I was the third of three, and the first two were super polished and nailed their times and their slides work. I got up there, the slides went haywire, and I just had to wing it.
Right.
And I was so in the moment that I didn't have time to try to be anything. I didn't have time or whatever, to be anything other than who I am.
Right.
Right. The sort of goofy, blunt, woman who uses humor a lot. And I got a standing ovation. And I think that was because I was as raw, as possible. And I think people appreciate that. Someone just standing up there and putting it all out there. Now, like Cindy Gallup does it in this incredibly polished, powerful way.
Right. She's been at it for a while.
And that's who she is. I'm less that. Right. And that really, and I had been on a bit of a journey trying to say, okay, stop trying to be everything else. But it was a big eye-opening moment where I just said, okay, just shake it, oh God, I hate her, but shake it all off and just be you, which is harder, right, than I think I've had when I was at Sparks and Honey working on McDonald's. One of the jobs I had to do was stand up in front of the agency every day and talk about 30 cultural things that we found in the last 24 to 48 hours. And you have to make it interesting for people, right? And so I just did it the way I did it. I didn't do it the way anybody else did it. And the number of women who came up to me and say, how do you do that? How do you just be yourself like that? And I'm like, it's hard, right? It's so hard because you're measuring yourself, other people are measuring you. And it takes a lot of practice and guts and just not caring anymore, quite frankly. Just saying, fuck it.
Well,
to just say, well, I it's too hard to do it any other way now.
Yeah, I know I speak for many when I say I'm so glad that you put in the work and that you're able to sort of be your authentic self every time that I talk to you and interact with you. And indeed, even on your daily LinkedIn messages, it's like, this is Rene and this is what she's doing and this is what she's all about. And you don't care what anyone has to say about that. So there's something so refreshing about that, I must say.
It's interesting. My daughter, I have two kids. My daughter is 17. And when I was growing up, my mom cut our hair, she shopped for our clothes, I had no sense of who I was anyway, until, sort of my mid 30s. My daughter, I've raised, I promised myself, I'm never going to say no to her, whatever she wants to do with her hair. I did when she wanted dreads when she was like 6, and I'm like, no. But she has this TikTok channel, right, that just blew up. And she's like, Mom, I don't have a shtick, I don't do anything. And I'm like, Soph, they just like seeing you for you. You were just doing yourself on there. And I said, and I was thinking to myself, you know, after we had this discussion where I was like, God, if only I had known that when I was 17.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, instead of what, you know, when I figured it out. And it's, I think, I hope that that generation, her generation, and I see girls who are just so much more powerful than we ever were. But they also have a lot more to deal with. But anyway, my point was, it is that ability to just be yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And she started the TikTok for the same reason I started, the top 5 on LinkedIn is, how am I making sense of this world right now?
Right.
So she's putting things out there that she needs.
Right.
Right. And that's what people are relating to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. So let me ask you, you have such a unique perspective, and you've always been in the creative space. And now you're SVP of Insights at Maru Matchbox, so you must have a point of view on what the future of human understanding looks like from an insights perspective.
It's terrifying. I joke, but it sort of is, right? It's the big picture is incredibly divided, obviously, and becoming more so, right? The number of people who have had to, myself included, say, you know what, I need to step away from you as a family member because I don't understand how you can support this person, you know.
I think I know what you're getting at.
Right, yeah, so Trump and all that sort of stuff. And many families have sort of gone through that, but it's becoming, you know, that idea of whether Trump wins or loses, it's gonna be ugly. And you know, how do we make sense of that? And how do we help our clients make sense of that in a way where they should become really active? I'm a huge proponent of companies stepping up and into the breach, right? The government has let us down in any number of ways. Who steps up? Now you see Nike stepping up once in a while with an ad or with this or everything, but I mean like really stepping up and sort of saying, and actually enacting, you know, change, as opposed to sort of a beautiful campaign about it.
Right.
The day-to-day part of human understanding, I think, relies, and it's a crap word for it, but I'll use it, aggregation. Because there's so much information out there and it comes so easy. I see too many people grabbing one study or one tweet off the internet and saying, here's what you need to know about this group of people or this generation. And that's it's too easy, and shame on them. And I think we sort of got overloaded with the keep it simple, stupid message in marketing. Yeah, keep it simple, but that doesn't mean everything that goes into it isn't complicated as fuck. I mean, we're human beings, we're complicated, right? So we have to look across all types of information, whether it's secondary or primary research, whether it's someone's, you know, a series, a years of whatever it is, 20 years of tweets, which we don't have, of course, all that sort of stuff. But you have to, and I think that's what it's going to be in sort of the future, which is that idea of, how do I meld everything I learned from my secondary review combined with my either qualitative or quantitative, combined with sort of the workshop where the client brings in all of this other sort of hidden knowledge, right? That they might not even know they have until you say, oh, and we found this, and they're like, oh my God, right? Yeah. And it's messy, and people don't want messy, but it is messy.
It is messy, yeah.
You gotta love that mess.
Yeah, yeah, and it sounds like what you're saying is, a lot of people think of big data as maybe one giant source
Hmm.
that can be the one source that'll answer your question versus what you're saying is big data is maybe a whole ton of messy sources that will allow us to
Yeah,
understand what converges and what diverges and how it
exactly.
follows.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
And
super
then it's
cool.
organic, especially
Yeah,
now with the shifting culture.
right, right.
I also think that we as a industry, and both market research and advertising, has really come to rely on that idea of a corporate voice as differentiator, right? All of,
Mm,
well, I don't think it exists anymore, but Holland Partners work looks like you can tell when it's a work from this agency or that agency. You can
right.
tell when this report is from this consultant or that. And I'm really, really, really against that,
Mm,
um, because you lose something in that translation. You lose that voice, that comes from the research, that comes from everything you've learned. The
right,
story you tell should be told in that voice, not in some corporate voice,
right,
right?
right.
Uh, so, I mean, it's a little thing, but I think it's really important that um, people growing up right now in the business learn to sort of understand the voice, the tone, the tenor, the tempo
Right,
of what they find in research,
right.
better than they have in the past. Yeah.
Cool, cool. I agree with you, by the way. That's I think that's a great point. I hope people listen to that. Um,
Me
so,
too.
quick shift of topics. So,
Yeah.
thinking about maybe other media podcasts,
Mm.
books, sources that you find inspiration from, either now or in the past. What comes to mind for you?
Right now, I'm a huge fan of the podcast Everything is Alive.
Hmm.
Have you listened to that one?
I have not.
Oh my God.
Help me out. Help me
Cracks.
out.
So
I asked this
Everything
question
is
for me,
Alive
right?
is a series of interviewers between the interview and inanimate objects.
Ah,
Um, like yesterday, we were listening to one in the car. Josh, oh God, completely lost my mind now. What was Josh, honey? I'm talking to my husband. Lowell says that I've already lost everybody. He was yes, the chainsaw. Thank you, sweetie. Josh the chainsaw, right? And they had this discussion about, the ridiculous stuff about being a chainsaw and about sort of the noises he makes and how he wants to sound like Cher, or that he's never had a hug. And it's funny, but they intersperse it with like, they interviewed a woman from Britain who in World War II was part of the lumberjills, who cut
okay.
down trees to sort of, or the things they needed on D-Day to, yeah, in World War II, on D-Day to come up Omaha Beach,
Hmm.
to create sort of the mosquito planes, which are all made out of wood. And so there's this really sort of interesting juxtaposition they do. Like they did one on a Sharpie. The woman was the pen and the man was the cap. And they kept talking about the pen and cap were talking about their life in an advertising agency, and it was hysterical. So that's one of my big favorites. I'm kind of not kind of, I am a history nerd. So Hardcore History by Dan Carlin is one of my favorites, and I can listen to those things over and over again. And then of course the Criminal podcast with Phoebe, who's also reading books these days. I find different things I need from each of them.
Cool.
And then the only blog that I read every week is Pop Culture Mondays by Brooke Hammerling. She writes about a variety of different things. I
Hmm.
love that she brings her own perspective and voice to it. And I always come out of reading it with having jotted down one or two things that I want to, like, oh, I should weave that into this project or
Hmm.
that. And right now for books, I'm kind of going through a phase of the inanimate. I go back to Everything is Alive. Like I'm reading Cast, The Origins of Our Discontent by Isabel Wilkerson. Have you read that yet?
I have not.
Oh my God, just mind blowing.
Yeah,
But also
I've read a
things
lot
like,
about it, but anyway, go
yeah,
ahead. Yep.
History of Solitude, and then which is, just because I'm actually an introvert. I love my time alone, and it's really eye opening. And then Snow, there's a book called Snow, A Scientific and Cultural Exploration that I'm in love with. And it all stems from a book I read probably 20 or 30 years ago called Cod, Fish That Changed the World.
Mm-hmm.
And I fell in love with books about these things, right? Guns, Germs, and Steel,
Yeah,
Salt,
it's a great one.
all of these things. And they, I don't know, they just help me think
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
Like.
No, that's excellent. So any clues that people could get to tap in that mind of yours, I think is
yes.
all right. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation,
I said I hope
Rene.
so. I feel like I talked a lot. And...
Well, I know you've seen maybe one or two of these podcasts so far.
Oh yeah.
And so I always end on this question. I hope you've had some time to think about it, but
I did.
You're stranded on a desert island. You said you're an introvert, right? So
yeah.
You've got all the time in the world, but you only have 3 records. What are they?
Yeah, and this was hard because I'm not a record or album person. I love singles. I don't, But then I realized that it was actually, once I started thinking about it, much easier than I thought, because the 3 albums that I returned to, and every song I love is, and don't laugh, Billy Joel, Glass Houses.
Okay. Very nice.
John Prine, Lost Dogs and Mixed Blessings.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then Lucinda Williams, Car Wheels on a Gravel Road.
Oh, fantastic. I'll definitely pay you a visit on your island if you don't mind. I won't stay for all eternity because you didn't say Slayer, but other than that.
Oh yeah. See, now I would love Back in Black, but just that one song, or
Yeah.
Or Rough Sex from whatever, Lords of Acid, but just that one song.
All right, cool. Well, I super appreciate your time, Rene. This has been a ton of fun.
Yeah, same. I hope. I hope people get something from it.
Yeah, I think so. So thank you so much. We'll talk soon. And yeah, cool. Rock and roll.
Thanks.
All right. See ya.